My name is Mary Ellen Fields. I'm an attorney at the Women Against Abuse Legal Center. I represent victims and survivors in protection from abuse cases and child custody cases. So I'm happy to be here with all of you and share some information regarding legal options for victims and survivors. So we do have some learning objectives here today. I'm hoping that through this training that you will understand what a protection from abuse order is, who can file for a protection from abuse order, and where to file here in Philadelphia. Identify the relief available through PFAs. Learn about the Women Against Abuse Legal Center and the assistance that we provide. And learn about criminal court options here in Philadelphia. I'd like to start with a brief icebreaker. So I'm going to ask for your participation as we move through these slides. So, true or false? A person can only get a PFA order if they've experienced physical violence.
False.
That is a false statement. A person may qualify for a PFA if they're experiencing physical abuse, but they may also qualify for a PFA if they're experiencing threats of violence, stalking, or they are in fear of imminent violence. All right, we have another one. A person can only file for a PFA if they've already called the police and made a police report. Do we think that's true or false?
False.
Is it necessary to call the police before you go to family court to file a PFA? I'm hearing a lot of false, okay? And I think you all know more than I realized because you're correct. It is a false statement. Very good. There is no requirement to file a police report or even to call the police before going to family court to file for a PFA order. If a survivor has a police report and they want to bring that to help support their case, they absolutely can do that. They can also use medical records, photos of injuries, or they could bring a witness to court with them who saw some of the abuse to help corroborate or strengthen their case when they go to court and talk to the judge. Proof could also be the victim's own testimony and lived experience. If the judge feels that they are credible and persuasive and believes their account of the abuse that they've experienced, that alone can be enough to get a PFA. Now, of course, it makes a judge's job easier and a client's case more likely to win if they have something to show the judge to substantiate what they're saying. But it's not necessary. And sometimes someone may think they don't have any evidence, but really they do. They just don't know where to look because they're not experienced in the system. But something like a text message, tons and tons of phone calls, screenshots, there are ways to get creative. And so if someone is reluctant to file because they don't know if they have enough evidence, that may not be true. We have another one. True or false? A person cannot file for a PFA if they are still married or still living together in the same home. That is false. A person can file a PFA against a spouse or an intimate partner while still residing in the same home. Victims can request to evict an abusive spouse from the marital home if that is something that they want or need, or a victim can request something that's called a protection-only order, which is just a different type of order with a different relief. And they can remain living together, but ask the judge to stop the abuse, harassment, and threats. When someone goes at the first instance to file for a PFA here in family court, that initial appearance before the judge is ex parte. What we mean by ex parte is that it's just the victim there because the other party is not aware that that person, or most likely is not aware that that person is filing at that time because they're coming by themselves, they're going in to file, and they do see a judge. They can request certain relief, and a judge decides whether or not they meet the criteria for that relief. So we have another true or false question, okay? A PFA is always the right option and the safest option for anyone who's experiencing abuse. Do we think this is a true statement or a false statement? Let's see. Okay, so this is a false statement because we are all human beings and we're not all the same, right? We all have different goals, different needs, and different wants. And so just like in the legal system, a PFA is simply a tool. It is an option that is available to victims and survivors. It's not always the right decision. And so individuals who are experiencing abuse need access to information and options so that they can make informed decisions. If they have access to information and understand the options that are available to them, then they can decide if a PFA feels like the right choice for them. It's not always safe for victims to file a PFA, right? Sometimes that could lead to escalation of abuse. In many cases, my clients do wish to file, and they do feel it is the right option. But I always leave that up to my client, and I simply explain to them, this is a tool, this is an option that you can seek out, and it's up to you whether or not you feel like that is the safest option for you at this time. If someone that you're speaking with in your community has questions about PFAs, you could always refer them to the Women Against Abuse Legal Center to discuss their options. Our job is to empower our client to decide if filing a PFA will be the best decision for them. Leaving an abusive relationship is the most dangerous and lethal time for a victim. True. So this is a true statement. The time when someone is preparing to leave the relationship in an abusive situation is the most dangerous time. Leaving an abusive relationship is when the victim's most vulnerable. They don't always have a safe place to turn to. And so it's a very difficult time. We're going to talk about what is a PFA, right? We know it's kind of like a piece of paper, some people might say, but it's a court order with some power behind it. So what does that mean? A PFA stands for Protection from Abuse. It is a civil court order issued by a family court judge. A PFA can provide protective relief to a victim from an abusive party. It can last up to 3 years. Even a permanent PFA, the max is 3 years. And what can a PFA do? Well, first of all, a PFA can order that the abuse stop. It can make it illegal for an abuser to contact the victim or their children. In some cases, a PFA can evict and exclude an abuser from the marital home or the shared residence. It can order an abusive party to stay away from the victim's school or work, and can provide emergency custody of the children to the victim. Yes?
So PFA is different than restraining order?
No, not really. So what it's called in Pennsylvania is a PFA, which means protection from abuse order, but it's essentially what you would think of as a restraining order or a stay away order. Different states have different names for these same types of like protective orders. And different states may have, slightly different understandings of orders. But in our state, a restraining order, as you're calling it, most likely what you're thinking of, is called a PFA order. So we're going to touch on what is abuse, what has to be alleged, and what is the person experiencing that is considered abuse as defined under the law in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, the PFA Act defines abuse as physical violence, sexual violence, threats of physical harm, false imprisonment, physical or sexual abuse of children, stalking, or harassment. I see a hand, yes, go ahead.
I have a question in regards to rape. I understand that if you don't give the okay or you didn't give the consent and he goes on to force you, it's rape. Regardless of the fact that you're married to them, it's considered rape. I'm not sure if I am right or maybe I'm misleading them in some way.
Thank you for asking that question. That is an important question to ask. And so you are correct in your understanding that marital rape is still considered rape in Pennsylvania law. So who can file for a PFA? The important takeaway that I want you to have from this slide is that there has to meet a certain criteria for a relationship to file for a PFA, okay? A PFA is not meant for like a stranger on the street to file against another stranger. This is for spouses, former spouses, that includes separated and divorced, former or current intimate or sexual relationship, former or current dating relationship, which includes same-sex relationships, parents and children, family and household members. All right? Very quickly, we have a quiz. If someone's being touched inappropriately by a coworker at work, there's no prior dating relationship, no intimate relationship, no family relationship. Can the coworker file a PFA against that coworker?
Oh, no.
Okay, great. The answer is no, right? There's no qualifying relationship. That's the starting point. Abuse and a qualifying relationship, okay? One more. Can a woman who's being stalked and harassed by her boss at work file a PFA against the boss? The woman and the boss had a prior intimate relationship that lasted 2 years. They are now broken up.
Yes.
Yes, great. Yes, a prior intimate relationship is existing and the woman is experiencing abuse as defined in the PFA Act because she's saying that she was being stalked and harassed, okay? Where to file for protection. We won't get into the nitty-gritty of all of this, but like I said, a PFA is filed at family court. How can you help someone who's experiencing an abuse in your community? Provide options and information in a non-judgmental manner. Encourage the person to contact a domestic violence service agency, such as the Women Against Abuse Legal Center. Provide support and follow the abused party's lead. So what is the Women Against Abuse Legal Center? As I mentioned, that's where I work. I've been there for about 5.5 years. And what I can say is that we provide free legal representation, court advocacy in family and criminal court, and telephone counseling to thousands of people each year. What about undocumented immigrant survivors? Can they feel safe calling us at the Women Against Abuse Legal Center? Yes, yes. Undocumented survivors are safe to call us. We maintain confidentiality of all of our clients' information. We will never share our clients' information outside of our agency or with law enforcement unless the client asks us to do so, okay? We have many undocumented survivors who have contacted us. I've had many as my clients. We welcome them, we are happy to assist them, and we will never share their information or bring them to the attention of law enforcement in any way, ever. So just a little more about our legal center. Our services are client-led and client-driven. We never tell our clients they must file a PFA, or they have to file this, or they have to file that, or they have to call the police and get someone arrested. That is not how we operate. We are empowering our clients to make the decisions that they feel will make them feel safe. When our clients are ready to move forward with a legal case, we assist by providing advice, accompaniment, and sometimes direct legal representation. So if a victim's experiencing abuse and they need police intervention, as long as they feel safe calling the police and involving the police, they can call 911. If they're not in immediate danger and they are safe in the moment, but they would like to document something and make a police report, they can go to the district and make a police report. And from that point, what would happen is that depending on the situation and the facts, the other party could be arrested and charged with crimes. The case could proceed to court, and then a prosecutor would handle it. A prosecutor represents the state interests by enforcing the law. And so they do take a victim's interests and goals into account, but that's also balanced by considering the safety of the community. I do have some referrals here and phone numbers for the Women Against Abuse Legal Center, as well as some other legal aid agencies. Thank you so much for your time and for your questions.